At some point in human history, one person looked at a crowd of other people, people who could outrun him, outfight him, and honestly probably outthink him, and said, I'm in charge now. Also, my son will be in charge after me. Also, questioning this is now punishable by death. And here's the insane part. It worked. Not once. Not in one place. Everywhere, on every continent, for thousands of years, humans agreed to this. So today we're answering the real question. Not who invented the first king, because nobody did. We're answering something stranger. How did an animal that spent 300,000 years refusing to be bossed around eventually build entire civilizations around kneeling? Here's what most people get wrong about human history. Kings are not the default. For roughly 95% of the time humans have existed, there were no kings, no crowns, no palaces. Not because we hadn't figured it out yet, but because our societies were actively built to prevent it. Small hunter-gatherer bands had a brutal, efficient defense system against bossy people. If someone got too full of himself, hoarded food, gave too many orders, acted like the group existed to serve him, the group had tools. They could mock him, gossip about him, simply stop listening to him. Or, worst of all for the guy with main character syndrome, they could just walk away. Pack up, leave, rebuild camp 20 miles down the river. You cannot rule people who can vanish into a forest overnight. Anthropologists actually have a name for this. Leveling mechanisms. Ridicule, food-sharing rules, group decision-making, and social alliances specifically aimed at cutting down anyone getting too dominant. Being the best hunter got you respect. It did not get you a throne. This wasn't some peaceful utopia. Humans have always built hierarchies around age, skill, family, charisma. But there's a massive difference between people admire Kevin and Kevin's toddler son inherits an army. One is status, the other is a state. So what changed? Not a genius, not a plan. A far more boring culprit, farming. Once humans started staying in one place, growing grain, raising animals, building permanent homes, something happened that had never really been possible before. Wealth stopped disappearing. A skilled hunter's reputation dies with him. A grain silo doesn't. A field doesn't. A herd of cattle doesn't. And once wealth could pile up in one place, it could also be unequal. Picture two farming families in the same early village. One family's field just happens to hold water a little better. 3 good harvests later, their storage is overflowing. The other family has a bad year and needs help. Suddenly the first family can lend grain, trade favors, arrange marriages, create debts that outlast the emergency that created them. Nobody sat down and invented feudalism on purpose, but archaeologists can watch the ingredients quietly assembling through house sizes, grave goods, who got buried with jewelry, and who didn't. Farming didn't hand anyone a crown. It handed them a spreadsheet, and spreadsheets, it turns out, are how empires start. As settlements grew from dozens of people to thousands, something else broke. You couldn't just gather everyone around a fire anymore to settle an argument. Irrigation needed maintenance. Boundaries needed enforcement. Trade needed coordination. Someone had to make decisions, even if nobody particularly wanted a someone. Then add violence to the mix. Full grain stores and fat herds make excellent raiding targets. And in a crisis, people tolerate strong leadership fast, because coordinating against an enemy at the gates suddenly matters more than, hey, who put you in charge? A war leader who kept winning didn't just gain glory. He gained followers, loot, and a very convenient excuse to keep his temporary authority permanently. Here's where the story stops being theory and starts being archaeology. In southern Mesopotamia, around 3200 BCE, the city of Uruk had become something the human species had genuinely never built before. Monumental buildings, specialized labor, long-distance trade, and enough strangers living on top of each other that nobody could remember who owed who 3 baskets of barley anymore. So humans invented writing. And here's the twist nobody expects. The earliest known writing isn't poetry, isn't mythology, isn't a love letter. It's paperwork, grain counts, ration lists, livestock inventories. One of the earliest administrative tablets from Uruk names roughly 120 different officials handling law, farming, livestock, and religious duties. Civilization invented bureaucracy before it invented literature. Let that sink in. A few centuries later, the evidence stops being subtle. Cities like Kish, and Lagash were now rival political powers, with written inscriptions naming actual rulers. And then there's the royal cemetery of graves so loaded with gold, silver, and imported luxury goods, some even containing multiple human attendants, that historians still argue over exactly what happened at those funerals. Whatever it was, the message is unmistakable. These were not ordinary people. There's a famous carved artifact from this era called the Standard of It shows soldiers, captives, workers, animals, and one central figure drawn noticeably larger than everyone else around him. Ancient artists weren't bad at proportions. They were making a political statement. Size was propaganda. The important person literally took up more space in the art because he took up more space in society. Here's the uncomfortable question archaeology can't fully answer. Why would thousands of people accept this? There's no ancient memo titled, "Reasons We've Decided Kevin is Now Sacred." Historians have a few competing theories, and honestly, they're probably all a little bit true at once. Theory 1, warfare. Groups with strong military coordination beat groups without it, and successful war leaders converted temporary command into permanent power. Theory 2, economic control. Whoever controlled the grain stores, the irrigation, the trade routes, controlled the people who depended on them. Theory 3, and arguably the most important one, religion. If a leader could claim a direct line to the gods, oversee the temples, or take credit for military victories as divine approval, his power stopped needing to be enforced constantly. A soldier can only make you obey while he's standing next to you. A god can supervise you when nobody's watching. That's a permanent upgrade. And Theory 4, coordination itself had value. Someone had to manage irrigation, resolve disputes, and organize large projects, and people sometimes accepted inequality because centralized leadership actually solved real, expensive problems. Winning a war is easy compared to running a dynasty. Eventually, someone always asks the dangerous question, why does his family get everything? So kings learned to wrap raw power in something stronger than force, meaning. The Sumerian king list opens with one of the most efficient political claims in human history. Kingship descended from heaven, not our family seized power in a messy local conflict. Heaven did it. Complaints go upward. One Akkadian king, Naram-Sin, took this even further, literally claiming divine status in his own inscriptions. In his victory monument, he's carved standing on a mountain, taller than every soldier around him, wearing a helmet associated with the gods. Ancient propaganda understood camera angles before cameras existed. And then came the final trick, inheritance. A powerful individual eventually dies, which is a problem if your entire system depends on one exceptional person. So power stopped belonging to a person and started belonging to a bloodline. The dead king's son didn't start from zero. He inherited the alliances, the property, the temples, and the story explaining why his family belonged at the top. That's the actual invention here. Not the crown, not the palace. The idea that authority could outlive the person holding it. Once that idea existed, killing a king didn't kill the system. Another king simply replaced him. Personal dominance had become an institution, and institutions, unlike people, don't die. We don't live under kings anymore. But we still live inside their biggest invention, the belief that an office can hold authority beyond any single lifetime. Presidents leave, judges retire, CEOs resign, the office remains. So next time you see a crown behind museum glass, you're not looking at the ambition of one man. You're looking at a story that outlived him. Follow for more real history they didn't teach you in school.